hear that because I'm recording the video straight, which is going to make life a lot easier. But with the clap, it annoys and confuses almost everyone I bring on. But luckily, we don't need to do this. But our sync was a clicker card. Oh man, we're back. We're here.
We're back. Welcome to another Push the Point Deck Tech. But today we have a special guest. Today we are joined by the Greek national champion, Yorgos Samaras. Welcome, Yorgos. Welcome.
Nice meeting you guys. Thank you for having me.
And as you might be able to see from the screen right now, Yorgos took Oldhim, Grandfather of Eternity, all the way to
Final.
win the Greek national championship. Yeah, all the way to the final.
Amazing.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yorgos, tell us, just give us a summary of your day at the Greek national, or your 2 days, was it, at the Greek national championships? How did it feel?
There was like a side event, but it was a bit like a Team Bleach, a casual event, and it was one day the whole constructive national thing. So it was the same day, both the Swiss and the Top Cat. So it was a long day.
Oh, imagine.
A long day.
They always are, aren't they?
Yeah, at some point, the organizers told me, well, look, we have the hotel till like 12 o'clock. So just finish your games, please. Finish your games.
And Yorgos, you took Oldhim. How long did you prepare for with your Oldhim deck? How many weeks testing did you manage to get in?
Well, it's I would like to have an introduction on that. I was like 4 days before the tournament, before Sunday. I mean, it was Wednesday. We had a meeting in our, with my play group to test the final testing basically before the nationals, and I had sleeved a Frost Lexi and a slow dash build. That were my two decks of choice for the nationals. So during the playtest, I had to either find a way to face Guardians as Lexi, or find a way to play versus Briar with Das. Okay, spoiler alert, I failed both these plans miserably. So, I was devastated after the whole play test. I was like, I have no deck for the nationals. I don't know what to play. Yeah. So, and a guy was like, why don't you just bring Guardian? Okay, so I went home. I studied. I find the first list I got my hands into, and I just, studied the whole thing. I played a single game against myself, playing both games, Oldhim and Briar, to check the matchup, and pretty much then I theorized about the whole sideboard step and everything else. I had experience with most other decks, so I knew what to do, what to face against, but I didn't have much experience with Guardian.
So you're putting us to shame.
I managed.
4 days. 4 days of testing. That's all you need.
Yes, something like 3. Yeah, and one of these days was like the team event, so one day was off. So.
Jeez.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
You just went in hot, right?
I was going to work, and I had these goofy moments. I was on the phone, checking cards, and I was like, you fuse this ice card.
You're figuring out fusing.
It was like the road was damaged, so I fell. I twisted my ankle. I was like, no, God, no, everything is going wrong. No, but it was just it was fine, nothing serious, but I had that goofy moment.
Oh my
thinking about fusing while, walking towards work or something.
Jeez. Okay. So 4 days, so you said Guardian, right? So Oldhim or Bravo? Why'd you pick Oldhim?
Well, it's the Greek meta game has a lot of great Prism players. So if you do well, you will face at least one of them has to go well, and you have to face him. So I figured that Oldhim has a much better chance of winning against Prism than
Yeah,
Bravo. So that was
Ooh.
my final decision why to pick Oldhim over Bravo for
yeah.
the nationals. And also
It
it's
makes sense.
yeah.
Well, that's a question I think we'll link back round to about when you talk about your matchups with Prism, because
Yeah.
that's really intriguing to me, because
It's
I find the
still
opposite, but we can go into
it's
the
still
details
I
of
think
that.
it's still one of the worst matchups for Oldhim, if not the worst.
Yeah.
But I think it's still better than what Bravo can do against
Okay.
Prism.
Well, that's we'll get stuck in. So Oldhim, right? So
Just before we
oh,
just before we crack on, Hamish, I
all
just want to
right.
give
I'll sit down.
I just want to give a no, you're good. I just want to give a shout out to Organized Play EU who
Yeah.
streamed the Greek nationals on Twitch, and I just want to send everyone over to that channel to watch the final of the Greek National Championships, which obviously, spoiler, Yorgos won. But I feel like if you want to go and watch that match, it's about an hour long. It's an incredible way to watch this deck in
Mm-hmm.
action. So once you finish the deck tech here, go and watch that match and just be in awe at the measured approach with which Yorgos here approaches that matchup. I loved watching that at the time, and I've watched it again since, and it's just incredible. So, Hamish, lead off, take us
Oh,
away.
yeah. I suppose really before we do that, guys, remember like, subscribe. We've got a Patreon. Sign up, and if every time you do, you're entering into a competition to win one of the Push to Point hats. So, further ado, let's get in. Oldhim, right? So this is your pretty much the bread and butter equipment that you would go into in generally most matches, I assume.
Yeah, in most matchups. So
Okay.
pretty much, I think the MVP of the whole deck probably is Crown of Seeds. And the whole yeah, I
Yes!
mean
I'm so happy you said that. I think this card's bonkers.
that card pretty much does everything this deck wants to do. I think
Mm-hmm.
there is no way this deck could have existed without Crown of
Mm,
Seeds, this type of play.
Yeah.
So, and everything, Mage Master Boots is just strictly tied to a single Tome of Fiendal
Yeah.
towards the deck.
Okay.
Whenever you side out the Mage Boots for anything else, you also cut Fiendal, but we will get that on the
Yeah,
deck.
sure.
yeah.
And the rest is pretty much the best options for Guardian for considering armor, because just any single point of life matters when your game plan is to pretty much most of the time deck out the opponent.
Okay. So I might. This might sound like a silly question. Have you? I suppose in 4 days of testing, you're probably not 100% sure. But there was always these debates about Anathos over Winter's Whale. But I assume Winter's Whale is just the natural go-to for Oldhim.
Well, it's definitely legit for some matchups. I even considered having it, but it makes the blue pitch you want to do pretty much on every opponent's turn. It makes it a bit worse not having the extra one to block with a shield.
Okay.
So even in matchups where in theory you don't want to block with a shield, like Prism or something, it still makes it turns off Crown of Seeds as well.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you sign an Anathos. So that was my thought process to this matchup. I guess it's still an option against most matchups, but I think Winter's Whale is a much more solid option.
I can imagine as well the fact that most of your cards, unlike Bravo, when Anathos needs to have 2 cards that have a higher cost value of 3 or more, and then actually quite a lot of your ice cards that you throw in, majority of them are 2 cost, so it does make Anathos a little bit of a slightly ropey choice when you want to get the most out of it.
There definitely can exist a build where you play either more aggressively or a high cost Oldhim build, but this approach is the completely defensive one. The one you
that's
pretty
fair.
much attempt to block. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So this is your bread and butter equipment, and should we move over to the core deck?
There we go.
Oh, look at that! Beautiful. Right. Okay. So Yorgos, starting from, I suppose, really the the hard hitting cards, I suppose, or is there a different sort of
Well,
structure of how you go about this? You know, because every hero is their way.
pretty much what you want to do in general with most matchups, you want to cycle at least once through your deck and play most of your defense reactions, your Sigil of Solace, your Command and Conquest and Lightning Strikes, cards that don't scale well the later the game goes on.
Okay.
So I mean, there are only like 5 Earth cards and like about 10 Ice cards. Yet I played like 50 Old through the tournament, and I've used them because Old is one of these cards where it's priority 1 to keep this card in your deck until you play it. You always wanted to put it on Arsenal, cycle with the Seeds of Agony, so you know it's there. And at some point you will get to a point where most of your cards are either Earth and Ice, and you will have Old, so you will be able to disrupt your opponent during these final turns of the game.
Brilliant.
And there was a perfect example of that in the final. Actually, you'd obviously cycled it to the bottom with an Ice and an Earth card early on, and on your second cycle it came back round. The opponent, Lightning Briar, had a full hand of either attack actions or none, and all they could do was pitch 2 cards, make a rune chant, pitch a card, and attack with sword. You managed to block.
And with one card
3
blocked.
points of damage with the Crown of Seeds, with the shield, and with 1 resource, and then you came back with an Old and fused it off a blue pitch. It was incredible to watch. It's like, oh, now you've got to discard 2 cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing why Old is one of these cards where at first look it's insanely hard to fuse, but if you manage the tempo you gain, it's amazing. Yeah,
it's Crippling Crush, really. You know, it's Crippling Crush, but easy. If you can do it, it's way more devastating than Crippling Crush. But Crippling Crush is obviously a lot more easier to just do, right? You know, but it's an insane.
It costs a lot less. I guess you don't have to discard the cards; they go to the bottom of the deck, don't they? But
still, man,
it's cost 3 rather than cost 7.
They're not getting discarded, but I think it's with most decks abandon the fatigue plan against Oldhim, so you don't really care if they go to the bottom.
You don't care.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
take us through some of the other big Guardian cards then.
So I mean, the most cards what you are expecting to face is probably Briar. So few of the attacking cards are aimed towards disrupting her, like Spinal Crash or Disable or Endless Winter. Not so much, but pretty much Disable and Spinal Crash are the cards that will interact badly with her if she lets you have a turn to breathe. And that pretty much goes to most matchups. If they give you a turn to breathe in order to set up or anything, you want to have a card that will impact them if they don't block.
Sure. Okay.
That's the whole plan. Okay,
cool. So I see that you've got some Rouse of the Ancients in there. What was the thought process behind them?
Rouse of the Ancients works for 2 ways. One, it's that after you cycle through your deck, most of the rest of your deck will be attacks. So if you want to switch gears at some point, you will manage to activate Rise of the Ancients easy, because most of 2 of your any attacks will trigger it after you cycle once through your deck. I mean, your cards have like huge attack numbers. The left, the rest of the attacks will still be in your deck.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's also tricky with Rouse of the Ancients, though, that it's one of your weakest card in the deck. So I think a somewhat aim with Rouse of the Ancients is to banish it with Art of War. It's one of its best uses.
Okay, it's basically the card that goes, right, I'm the sacrificial lamb for the Art of War.
You never. It's whenever I had the Rouse of the Ancients and I could banish it with Art of War, I was like, yeah, I don't want you inside my deck anymore. I mean, I prefer to run faster and find my better cards.
Okay.
Tell us a bit more about
Art of War, yeah.
Art of War, because you don't see that in many Guardian decks, and it was a real surprise to see it. You not only had it in your deck, but you played it to really good effect in the final. So tell us about that.
Well, the whole idea was that I think Oldhim is pretty much the only deck that can use all of the modes. I mean, even the +1 armor that your attack action gets, or even blocking from Arsenal at some cases. And the whole idea is that whenever, if you pitch blue, as I said earlier, during your opponent's turn to block one with a Crown of Seeds and one with a Shield, the one floating is the best scenario to use Art of War and get some extra value if you need it. And the fact that it's instant speed makes it a lot easier to... Most aggressive decks will try to leak damage through reactions or not letting you block so efficiently. And Art of War makes it so much easier to, either prevent these cases or make sure that, there is no way the damage can be leaked during this turn because I have Art of War and I have more cards in hand, and my cards are more valuable than what they are supposed to be.
Okay, yeah.
Nice.
I think I'll touch on a bit as well with the... I think CNC is a fairly obvious card, but if you want to go through the points of why CNC and E-Strike is in a Guardian deck.
Well, mostly for against decks where you have to play aggressive, and these decks are Prism and Das.
Yeah. Okay.
So and Kano, but okay. So when you want to switch gears and be the aggressive one, E-Strikes and CNC are probably the best cards. And the amazing thing with E-Strike is that it's the one of the few ways you can go again against Prism. So you can, 5 go again face and then pitch a blue to destroy a Spectra or something. So, and that adds up a lot to the tempo you can achieve with Online Strike.
Brilliant. Okay. So I think that addresses why those cards are in the deck. I'm trying to think of what play, because of our original deck text we did, players asked us a lot of questions. It's good to know for us on that side. So
I'm just looking at the defense reactions.
Yeah, I was about to go to that.
You've got 10 defense reactions. Is that right?
That's correct.
3 blue staunches, 3 Fate Machine, 3 Sync Below, and then the Pulse. How often did you use the Pulse for its defense reaction versus pitching for the Ice Earth?
Or the Fuse?
Pretty much, I feel that you never want to use it as a defense reaction. I mean, if you can manage to use it every time it gets into your hand to remove a card from your opponent's hand and block the damage, it's huge, And
that's huge.
And I want to... Oldhim's ability, we might have not talked about this a lot, but I think the whole pitch a nice card to remove the last card of my opponent's hand, I think it was a highlight during a lot of matches. Mostly aggressive decks, and it was a silly synergy with fusing. There were a lot of cases where my opponent, either a Lexi or a Briar, fused with an attack, and I knew they had a red attack in hand, so it was just put it on top of your deck.
You pretty much just told me. Which one is it? Yeah, you're not having that one.
It was. And it's also, if you manage to both be able to, the 2 damage from Oldhim be enough to stop an attack and remove him again from hand, it's amazing.
Great value.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, okay, so I suppose the defense reactions are pretty straight up, simple for a defensive game plan. If you're a Guardian player, you know that Staunch Response Blue is a pretty universally used card. Great value, great blocking. I assume that's why that's in. And the sigils as well. That's all part of the defensive game plan, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all the talking bits for you. It's just, I suppose, really when you see it, you're kind of like, oh yeah. I mean, this is the stuff you would see if you're going to play a very defensive game plan.
And it's like the thing with sigils is that whenever your opponent gives you a bit of breathing air, you can punish them by playing a sigil because now they have to deal with 3 extra damage.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm. Okay.
You mentioned the Tome of Fiendal is used in only some of the matchups. Which are you thinking in particular?
Whenever you are not siding out the boots for Arcane Barrier, you keep the
Okay.
Fiendal and the Mage Master boots.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Right.
I take it with the High Briar field, you didn't see Tome of Fendel quite a lot.
Yeah, I did not. I did not. I mean,
Fair enough.
it's only a bit. You don't even care for the arsenal part because mostly you play it against, Dash and Prism and stuff, and your
Yeah.
life totals mostly doesn't really matter against this matchup.
You just
have
want
to
the
deal
card.
with it. Yeah.
And my favorite card in the deck, just because I've had trouble playing against it, is Channelate Frigid.
All right, we'll move on to the ice cards. Yeah, starting with that. Busted.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
It's
You're
such
good.
a good card. It's such a
busted.
good card. Did you get to use it much in the tournament, Yorgos, or was it mostly for people?
No. It's an amazing card, and it was one of the few cases where you considered taking some damage to develop by playing a lake because you knew it will give a hard stop to a lot of decks during your opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Hard stop.
That's a good phrase.
and also it's one of the few cards. I mean, it's one of the cards that you have in mind when considering Oldhim, as I said before, against Prism, because as well it makes the whole billion auras thing. It buys you a turn or two.
It does.
Okay, cool. So we'll move over to the oh god, I can't read the card on the right. No, that's Winter. All right, we'll go to Winter's Bite. Yeah, or Winter's Grass. Winter's Bite. Which one? Winter's Bite. That's an interesting one. So you've had how many copies of them did you get? Got 2.
Just two. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So why them? Out of all the ice cards.
Well, Winter's Bite is one of these cards where it forces a card out of your opponent's hand because you don't have other effects with similar abilities like Lexi. So they won't get any extra value. They will have to remove a card from their hand when you play it. So it's pretty much the same thing where if your opponents don't attack much, so you can pretty much block them without using your full hand and you are left with a Winter's Bite, you can remove a card from their hand for their next turn.
Hey, one of the questions I've had people ask me before is that aren't you trading a card for a card? So you're losing a card for them to lose a card. Is that... I'm just trying to work out the value behind that.
Yes, because most decks do not consider decking Oldhim an option, because at some you will get decked out most of the time.
Okay.
So you won't play Winter's Bite. I mean, if you think there is a chance that they still might deck you, you won't play it. You just pitch it and hammer and go on.
Yeah.
But against Briars or Lexi and stuff, you prefer to make them lose a bit of tempo.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I suppose if they're not going to block, then actually them having a 3-card hand rather than a 4-card hand makes a massive difference.
Winter's Grass. I mean,
it's an attack. It has 3 armor. It's blue. It's ice.
Perfect.
It has everything.
I thought that.
Perfect. It's perfect.
I thought that would be the case because most of the time these 3 armor, like the elemental cards, ice, earth, and lightning. Whenever you see the 3 block ones, that they're in, right? They're in.
And Art of War makes it much better having a high attack count, because it makes it block 4. I blocked 4 with these cards a lot of times.
Oh, fantastic! And Polar Blast, is it Polar Blast? Yeah, it is. So, so you got 2 copies of them. How come?
Most of the time, it's to press against. You will only use it against decks that you want to be aggressive. In all of the other cases, they will just be pitch material.
Sure. All right, brill. Should we move down to the Earth cards? You've got, a lot of Autumn's Touches.
Yeah.
Because I suppose
6 Autumn Touches.
Yeah.
It blocks for 3.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it blocks for 3, yeah. Well, it's the yellow autumn stats over another blue earth card is because a lot of times whenever again you pitch blue during your opponent's turn, the one floating +2 from the yellow autumn stats is enough to trigger Oldhim's reaction. So if you can
Yeah.
manage to trade a card to your deck for a card of your opponent, you get +1 card.
That's really nice.
Yeah, that's sick. That's very good. Very good. Right. I will throw
So
down. Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, just so these Yorgos, are these all cards that just stay in the deck no matter what? The only one being Tome of Fiendal that comes out if the Mage
Well,
Master boots come out.
there are we have to talk about sideboard to talk about this, but most of these cards pretty much stay. I mean, okay, the cards that do get removed are probably the 9 defense reactions where you have to go
Okay.
aggressive.
Sure.
That's
I wanted to just before we go in, I want to talk just very, very, very quickly about the last 3 sets of cards that I assume are in there because they are block 3 blue cards. But you got your Tear Asunder, you got your Cranial Crush, and you got your Glacial Footsteps. Just very quickly for Guardian players or people in general, why those 3 cards out of all the other Guardian cards you could have picked?
well, they have the highest attack count while being blue
Sure.
for Rouse of the Ancients and for the Fatigue game.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And the other reason, I mean, Disables and Spinal Crush are because the most aggressive decks have to block them if they still want to have their full turn.
Oh, I forgot the Righteous Cleansing as well. Is there a
Oh,
reason?
yeah.
I mean,
Ten
I
attack.
absolutely love this card with its artwork. But is there a reason why you put this card in?
Well, it's the same reason again. It has the highest attack count, and with a fatigue game, having one of 2 of those when the game is close to finish, they will have either to block it by blocking 3 cards from their hand, or let it crash and again lose cards from the top of their deck.
Don't let that thing crush.
No.
Okay, cool. And the Tear Asunder? I mean, I think Tear Asunder's nuts, and you want to put it in all the time, but why did you put it in?
It's the cheapest interaction an Oldhim player can ask for. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's the cheapest. With most armor decks, it's not that great, as good as it is on Bravo, but still against a lot of decks, it will force an interaction, a block, so it still will give you its worth.
Brilliant.
And by the end of the day, it's 3 armor blue card. I mean,
yeah.
All
right, Brill. I mean, that's the whole chunk there, and look at that sideboard. That's what we want to see.
It's a tiny sideboard.
Tiny sideboard. Okay, cool. So I take it there's going to be cards coming in and out, but wow. Okay. I think what we'll probably do is just very, very, very briefly just go over why these cards are in there, and then we'll go through the heroes and what you would take out and what you would put in. Okay. So I'll start with Pummel, man. So Pummel. What's the purpose of that?
It works amazingly with Oldhim because even the single hammer is effectively creating a frostbite token, so that +4 makes a lot of sense at a lot of times.
Sure.
Also, I was siding in a single Pummel if I was winning the die roll and going first.
Oh,
okay.
Because a single Pummel is easy enough, to get rid of if you don't want to. But there were some times where there were at a game against a Lex player. I think I drew it first hand, so I managed to play it first hand and surprise give them a frostbite token and make them take 4 damage to the first turn. And
that's just crushing.
He's just chancing his arm. I love it.
I love it. Oh, am I going? I think I've never heard someone actually. This is probably the first time, in my opinion, that I've ever heard someone go, you know what? I'm going first, and I'm putting this card in because I'm going first. Normally, it doesn't. You just put most of the time you hear people make their decks up, and then they go, oh yeah, who's going first? me or you. It doesn't really matter. My deck's going to be the deck anyway. But for you, it's like, oh no.
It's the whole thing.
Double
It's
time.
Pamel is an amazing card in this
Yeah.
deck, and a single Pamel is not that big of a drawback. It's a red card
Okay.
that blocks for 2. If you have too many of them, you might die.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you might stumble upon them, but a single
Yeah.
one, it's not that big of a drawback.
Okay, cool.
But the benefit of drawing it turn 1 is huge.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Or,
man.
or at any point where your opponent is like, okay, I will set up to give you a bigger turn later.
Yeah.
And you have that Pamel. You
I
have
love it.
that Pamel.
You've got the power. Right. And then Blizzard. I mean, I feel it's pretty obvious card as to why you want to put it in, but why did you put Blizzard in?
Okay, so it's. I wanna say I put it in to see my opponent's face whenever it got played. Everybody was like, "Oh, oh, not again! You drew another one." Okay, but it's a lot of times with this deck you want against most aggressive decks, and these are decks that in general do want to attack a lot.
Mhm.
These decks have probably an amplifier like a Plunder Run or in Electrify, something that can draw them more cards or that makes the whole turn bigger, an Art of War or something. Giving a hard stop during these turns just buys you so much time, because that's the way they can leak damage each through drawing an extra card from Plunder Run. But if you stop the turn with Plunder Run, you stop a lot of the potential damage these decks can output.
Yeah, no, that's
especially against the Briar, who can make their own go again.
Yeah,
right.
Especially against Briar, and
they run so many reds that they don't want to pitch to stop it.
Exactly.
Perfect. And I could see that you have quite a lot of Null Rune. I mean, you're probably the most prepared Kano deck I've ever seen.
I didn't face it. I was.
I'm not surprised you wouldn't.
Well, actually, we had the Kano player finishing 10th. We had the Kano player finishing 10th, but it was close enough. So still.
Okay, so you've got quite a lot of Null Rune.
In most matchups, whenever you're facing a Rune Blade, most of the time you want the gloves and the boots.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Heart of Ice is just to play against the Prism. It's the only matchup where it gets side in.
All right, well, we'll start with that then. So, Heart of Ice against Prism. I assume it's because they have their instances and it just gives them a bit more of a harder time.
Yeah, and whenever you have, this one floating, it's good to Heart of Ice, so they have to make their move first and stuff. And also, it's good to have Arcane Barrier against Prism with I don't remember the Spectra that whenever Ara gets destroyed, you get dealt an arcane damage.
Oh, Merciful Retribution.
Yeah, Merciful Retribution. Yeah. It's because. A lot of the time, their game plan a lot of the time is to make a bunch of auras and just wait. So this extra damage at a lot of times is lethal.
Absolutely. So that's why that's that for any of that. And Null Rune boots. So is there ever a time you ever go Null Rune 1, or was it always now Null Rune 2 because of Rosetta?
It was always 2 again because of Rosetta.
Okay, interesting.
Very sensible.
Yeah. So
I didn't face any Viserai players during the Nationals, but I'm thinking even if I would face a Viserai player, I would still play to Null Rune.
I don't like that plan. I think you should. I think you should run 1. I mean, for no reason whatsoever.
No reason whatsoever.
No reason whatsoever. I mean, fatiguing is not a good strategy against Viserai. I'm just saying, No, that sounds really good, actually. I'll be straight up. If I saw someone, I did see some people run Null Rune 2, and it is a pain. And especially with a deck that just has a multitude of blues, it is going to probably do a very good job of fatiguing any Runeblade player. Well, Chain, actually. I suppose you will see Chain run the Rosetta. And I suppose he's even probably more better for you because you're like, huh, you're decking yourself.
Yeah.
I'll just sit back and watch you go.
Well, actually, in we do have a great chain player here in
All right,
Greece,
yeah.
and he was unlucky enough to face me during the first round of the Swiss and during the
Oh,
first round of the top eight. And throughout the tournament, he only lost to me.
Oh wow.
oh,
He
Oh,
lost to me twice, yeah, with his chain deck.
oh man.
But
What was his name? Shout outs.
let me so that's let
Did
me
you? Oh, did you?
I
If you
don't
don't, yeah. I don't want to put you on
let
the
me
spot.
I don't want to. Okay, it's Bunas Canaris.
Oh, unlucky, mate. Okay, you had to play up against Oldhim.
Yeah, he faced me twice, and it's like when their top eight was announced, I was like, fourth place, Yorgos Samaras, fifth place, Canaris. Oh no, no!
Okay, well let's start neatening this up a little bit. Okay, so we started going through some of the heroes, so let's try and tie this up.
Okay.
We'll do the rune blades. I think it was pretty straightforward about what the plan
yeah.
is. You got your null runes, and you're playing the fatigue strategy against them. All of
Yeah.
them.
Well, you could be a bit afraid. That's why you have such a great deck against Briar, because if she has an Earth build, she might manage to
Mm,
make it a bit tougher. But I think the most effective strategy still to kill Oldhim is to try to kill him fast, even as Briar.
okay.
So my strategy with Oldhim is just have the deck advantage, and after that point just be sure to make them run out of efficient cards. And these cards most of the time are excluding confidence, lander runs, electrifies, and stuff. Again, as I said earlier,
Okay.
that amplify their damage.
Okay, sure. So if you're going to play up against, let's just say Chain, right? I can imagine for this point, Simon will move that Tome of Fyandel right out of the way because it's probably never going to get seen for a little while because of the Null Rune boots coming in. So you're playing up against Chain. What out of your sideboard are you slotting in, and what are you taking out?
Well, against Chain, the only thing you want to do is just put inside, the blizzards.
The Blizzards.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
And you don't take anything out?
No, because it's you do still want to have a high deck count even against
Yeah.
Chain, and the thing is that Chain players have side plans against other decks that might make them set up a turn. So
Yeah.
you don't want to remove aggressive cards because Chain players might, just attempt to set up a big turn to kill you. And the turn they want to set up, if they don't attack you at all or just attack you for a small amount, you want to be able to punish them by, attacking with Command and Conquer or even Rouse of the Ancients or,
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so that's Chain. So Briar, I assume you have a plan against an unknown Briar. What would you don't know if they're Earth or Lightning?
It's the exactly same game plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
side in the exactly same, just the Blizzard scene, a single Pummel again if I play first or not.
Sure.
And
I like that.
and the
Sneaky tech.
the thing with the thing with Briar is that you want to give them a hard stop during the turns where they play Plunder Run. So
Okay.
you don't really care on the other or the rest of the turns. You might let him leak some damage to either better set up, or if you are able to pull off an attack during your turn.
Okay.
So that because Briar, if she has the fast lighting build, she will deck
Yeah.
out pretty fast.
Yeah.
Sure. And then what about good old Viscerai?
Well, against Viscerai, I think I wouldn't play the Blizzards because you're not sure if he wants to go for the go wide strategy or Sonata
OTK.
combo or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Blizzards could be out, but pretty much the rest are for the same reasons because Viscerai as well. Viscerai has a lot of setup turns, so you want to have your aggressive cards in to punish him when he attempts to do that.
Yeah. So Viserai, as it's now been pretty much shown that if he's going up against a Guardian player, it will not bother going on the aggression. He'll just pretty much set up an OTK turn.
Yeah.
And block up everything you're trying to do and go, right, I'm just going to do a spirit bomb. Basically, can you kill me before the spirit bomb lands? So, yeah, I mean, taking out the blizzards makes a lot of sense. But I suppose, really, on an interesting note, if you've got 2 null rune, is that going to be a small factor because you're not really going to be utilizing the most of your equipment?
You mean against the Viserai?
Yeah. Suppose really you didn't see it, but if it's good food for thought going forward though, that whether or not if they're going to go and do an OTK plan, whether those 2 arcane barriers is actually something you need.
I haven't played the exact matchup. I mean, OTK Viserai against Oldhim, but I figure Viserai will take him a lot of time, and you do have cards that interact with him, and that I think
that's true.
One of Viserai's things are that he hopes that you have no interaction with his deck, and I'm running 3 Righteous Cleansings. I mean, if this lands, the game might be over, and he has to block.
We need a game, but we'll do that another time. All right, let's move on from the Rune Blades over to let's go through a couple of easy ones, I suppose, or ones that you may know. We'll go through Warriors. So Dorinthia, is there a did you have a plan against Dorinthia?
Well, I think it's the exact same thing where you you just cut the blizzards and play the rest of the deck. The whole deck works, that's why it's the main deck. You don't have to do anything specific against the Dorinthia. The plan you're trying to achieve pretty much works against them.
So, just an interesting point. Would you ever consider running in the Ice Heart against heroes that have defense reactions against you, or is that not a thing that you're worried about?
I don't think you really care because losing the Seismic Surge is much more important than making them pay an extra 1, because I mean
it's great value.
Sure.
The Guardian Sword, a mirror Oldhim, let's say, probably would cut few of the defense reactions. I don't know. I'm not sure how he would approach the matchup, the Bravo player against Oldhim.
Okay, sure.
To be honest.
So Bolton.
So what?
Bolton. Yeah, I know Bolton has a Raiden and a Sabres build. One of them is really good. One of them is really bad. I have this dig on anyone that plays Sabres. It's actually pretty fine, but I just think it's. I think as an OTK Viserai player, I find its cheesiness cheesy.
So
So what would you do against that?
My last deck of choice, my previous deck of choice through the previous meta game was Saber Bolton. So please be very mindful of.
No, we noticed that the Europeans love Sabers Bolton. They love
it. Big in Europe.
Yeah, he's big in Europe. Well, so I imagine if you were going to go up against Bolton, the Sabres game plan is probably the likely thing you're going to see. So what would you do against that?
I don't think Sabres are even viable right now.
No,
so
I agree.
I wouldn't consider he was running Sabres.
Okay.
Still, I would play Blizzard because pitching for Bolton is so tough.
Yeah.
And most of his offensive game plan is to go again. So.
Okay. Would you keep the Tome of Findals in because you're not running? Because obviously you don't have any Null Rune. Okay, so you basically keep the Findal and add in the Blizzards. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Cool. Brilliant. All right. Who else are we going to move on?
Give me Katsu.
Katsu. Oh yeah, go on. Simon's boy, Katsu. Let's go.
Okay. Katsu pretty much it's the exact same thing.
I thought
as, Bolton, and it's for the exact same reasons because Katsu might have an easier time paying too, but if it interrupts their combo, you don't really care. I faced a Katsu on the 5th round of Swiss at 4-1, and the thing that devastated me the most, because I think against Katsu, not all of their turns are. Threatening. Threatening. Yeah. But he was running the full combo blue. He opened during the first turn with blue surging strike, and I was like, okay, I have to block everything.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
I was
Okay.
like, I had to
Okay.
block everything. We got to a point. He even slow rolled the last Mugensin like with 5 cards in his deck. The card deck was like a Mugensin, 3 Lord of the Winds, and a single piece of the rest of the combo. But I managed, to kill him because against Katsu and all these aggressive decks, it's amazing how good the whole, pitch blue, block one with a shield, one with
Yeah,
Chrono Steeds
it's so
works
efficient. It's
so
as a
efficiently.
as a as a main Katsu player before this national season, the the Guardian matchups are always very difficult, and you have to be extremely disciplined as a Katsu player to get where you need to go. It's really hard, a hard matchup.
Hmm. Okay. So
Let's
what are we
do
gonna?
let's do Lexi. Lexi's another new hero.
Oh, okay. We're gonna go
Well,
down the Rangers. So do we bother with Azalea anyway? So
no,
Lexi.
yeah.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was expecting a lot of Lexis. It was my deck of choice as well before Oldhim
Yeah.
because
Sure.
of how good the matchup is against Briar. And what I figured it was that it's probably one of the best matchups for Oldhim because
Hmm.
her deck just runs out. She doesn't have enough arrows to kill you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the exact same plan and just keep blocking because at some point she will run out of arrows. And
Okay.
that's a big thing with Lexi. The lighting Lexi, I think it's much more threatening than the ice one
Yeah.
Of
against
course.
Yeah.
Oldhim. But still, but still, I think it's one of the best matchups you can hope for us playing with Oldhim.
Oh, brilliant.
Fair enough.
All right, let's go down to the brute boy and the brute girl. We've got Rhino and Levia. We'll start off with Rhino. What's your experiences with Rhino, if any?
I don't think I've had any. I think we had a Reiner and a Shadow Brute player and a Brute player during the Nationals, and they had like a 1-6 and 0-7 or something. That was their final score. They didn't do.
Ouch.
It was a bad day for them. Yeah, it was a really tough day for Brutes.
What was your
But
plan against Brute?
well, just cutting the blizzards, you don't really care for going again, and it's the same thing. At some point, you will attempt to deck them. There is a bit of change in strategy against Reiner because most of the times you want to have attacks on your arsenal to put them on the bottom of your deck, but against
Yeah.
Reiner you would prefer to have defense reactions on your arsenal to block in the case he intimidates you. So against Reiner, I guess you could say you could have a bit more of an aggressive approach, but you surely do not want to give him any free damage because
Okay.
Yeah,
you
and
could die from 20 HP. Yeah.
and Levia.
Yeah.
I figure the same. If you block through her most aggressive turns, I think her gas will run out pretty easy, pretty fast.
Sure.
And she also has the same problem that at some point she might kill herself.
Yeah, that's true. Although I imagine that, like most of us here, including all of us in the UK, that we just kind of went. I think I know what she
Whatever.
does.
It's not going to happen.
It's probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
We're probably not going to see her. I'll put
she-
this in and see what happens.
I think she definitely needs a bit of love during the circus thing.
Yeah.
Circus
The
So
yeah, Levian's in the circus.
Everfest,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
it.
we talked about Prism and Bravo as we went along. Really, nothing too special there. What about a notoriously difficult matchup for Guardians, Dash?
Well, I think the game plan is almost just cut out everything defensive and try to kill her fast.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it's the only the good thing that you're running the Rampart is that it will take them way more time to set up the whole combo to kill you because shield blocks way too efficiently early on. So you do have some time earlier during the game to get through as much damage as possible.
Would you cut
cut
all 9?
All 9 of the defense reactions, yeah. And I was considering a lot of cutting sigils, but I think I prefer them in just to buy you during the later turns of the game this extra time. When you
Sure.
reach that point when you are not blocking, you prefer to have plus 3 HP on your hand rather than, something that blocks.
Okay, cool. So slam.
Would
I
you
like
put the
that.
blizzards in or no?
No, I wouldn't play
No.
blizzards against her.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose because she's just reamed with blues, right? So the second you're just gonna go, ah ha ha, you're like, well, whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So you did say we went over Prism, but I think Prism is
Oh,
ridiculously.
sorry for
Oh, go
Das
on. Oh,
as
sorry.
well. For Das as well, I would put the pummels in.
Okay.
The
So you
Oh,
put
okay.
all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you put for Dash.
Let's do that.
Let's throw these in.
Yeah.
You put all the pummels in as well. Brilliant. I like this plan.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love seeing an aggressive Guardian player.
Volume smash.
Yeah, I love aggressive Guardian players in top eights. George. Anyway, so moving on to Prisms. I think Prism is the new hate of Guardian. We all thought Dash is awful. It's always had historically been an awful matchup. I think it's been replaced by Prism, so I would love to hear your thoughts. I've given this a go against Prism. I think it's hopeless, but I'm not an Oldhim player. What's your thoughts against Prism?
Well, it's the exact same thing as Das, where you cut all of the defense reactions and put in pummels and
okay.
hope to kill her. Just hope to kill her. The thing is that the great thing against Prism is that she
Oh, yeah, you put
just
that
simply she cannot attack you with the heralds. I mean, any card you
Yeah.
play, any card you block with, pretty much destroys
Any
the
of
herald.
these.
So
Yeah.
her game plan is solely to rely on auras. So you just have to, go fast and attempt to kill her. I did
Okay.
face a Prism, one of the good Prism players we have in the Greek community on the second round, and she wasn't expecting this much aggression out of an Oldhim deck. I mean,
Interesting.
Art of War, Command and Conquer into Hammer is a really realistic attack pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really realistic attack pattern. I stumbled upon 2 turns when I played the Tome of Fiendal, I didn't draw enough blue cards to pitch and attack, and at some other point I had Art of War and I drew Rouse of the Ancients and no other attacks.
Oh.
I stumbled and the life totals were at some point I think 3 and 22.
He was on 3.
He was on 3 and I was on 22 life.
Right.
And I greeded over a turn where she had Genesis in play, and I was like, no, I will kill her. I don't. And it was a terrible mistake because at that point she fully blocked, she kept cycling, and at some point the game got out of control.
Oh, you did the number 1 rule. Don't ignore the Genesis. You ignored it, and it just man. Well, it's a good lesson.
It's still probably the worst matchup you have against any other day. It's your worst matchup, but you do have a game plan to go play against her.
That's good. It's good to hear.
Nice.
I think we've been through pretty much all the heroes. I'm pretty sure someone's going to go, well, what about this one? Kano. Yeah, whatever. Kano.
Well, against Kano is the same thing, and they are in the bad spot of you having 3 Nullidon. I mean...
Yeah.
And then you just slam them.
Yeah.
And I take it you take all your defense reactions out and just go ham.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. That's it. I suppose really we'll end this interview on with a bit of your journey through the Greek nationals. So how many rounds was day 1?
I think it was the Swiss was 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a top 8. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So it was 9.
So nine rounds in one day.
9 rounds in one day. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a 2-day event. It was a big.
No. It was
a
1-day event. So
no draft.
No, there was no draft.
Oh man, you guys live in the dream.
Well, honestly, I would love to have a 2-day event and having, the whole 2-day draft and construct, but, the community is not as big as, some other countries.
Sure, sure. Well, okay. So, we'll just go through round one. Who was your hit? If you remember their names, cool. If not,
It was a chain, wasn't
I
it?
faced, yeah, it was
yeah, it was Chain. That was
Jonas
it.
Canaris with the chain player, and I mean, I even think I didn't play. I made some mistakes during this game, but the matchup is so good that it allows you to do a lot of mistakes because if they stumble even once or twice, they are out of deck.
Right. Yeah, that's
They
true.
don't have
Yeah.
much time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Round two.
Round two was against the Prism player, where
Oh,
he wasn't expecting. I was so angry after facing. I had to face a Prism the second round, still having chances of not getting to top eight, but you know, it got better. The good news were that all the Prism players were like 2-0, so I wouldn't
oh,
face
so you
them on
dodged
round
it.
three.
Right,
I
brilliant.
dodged them on round three. Yeah.
So who was round three?
Round three was a nice Lexi against Gumas Konstantinos. He
Oh,
actually was one of my playmates. He's one, a
Oh,
friend.
okay.
We
oh,
play
you were
together.
battle one of the testing part. Oh no, it's
Yes,
rough, in
and
it.
I played round three against Gumas Konstantinos with Ice Lexi, and round four against Patelis Gregory with Lighting Lexi. Both of these guys were in my play group.
Oh wow. Okay.
I also want to talk about this about the approach because
Yeah.
the Frost Lexi attempted to deck me with three remembrances and
Wow.
72 card deck. That was
Right.
his game plan.
That didn't go too well then.
But the thing is that if your deck against Oldhim gets way too inefficient, I mean,
Yeah.
drawing the blizzards and the random defense reactions and stuff like that, I don't feel pressured. And if I don't feel pressure, I
Yeah.
attack you. If I
Yeah.
attack you, you
And
still
that's
have to
bad as
block.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And then the lightning Lexi.
The Lightning Lexia, I thought I was dominant during the most of the time, and at some point he got through a light up with an electrify and dealt me like, I don't know,
Oh.
12 damage or something.
Oh. Yeah, she can slap. She can
She can
slap.
slap, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that approach as well is probably the best because I got at 8 life at the end of the game, but she got
Oh.
decked and I won, but I got at 8 life. And I mean, during
Wow.
the
Okay.
Frost Lexi game, at some point, he hit me with a remorseless for 6, and I was like, okay, take 6, go to 43, back to you.
Wow.
Jesus
Okay.
Christ. All right, and then what are we now? Round five?
Round five.
Round 5 was against the Tatsu player,
Oh, okay.
where he had the whole blue side of combo, but I f- it I thought I could close the game much faster than I did, but the whole
Right.
thing that he still had pieces of the combo still left his deck made me always, whenever I saw a part of the big combo, being like, okay, I have to block again, never mind. Yeah. And at some point I decked him, I managed to deck him, and I closed the game with him having like 1 card in hand and 0 cards in deck.
Brilliant. And then your last round of Swiss.
My last round of Cs was against my opponent on the finals.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Chris Giannis. Well, there were two funny things on this game. The first one was he wins the die roll and he was like, okay, you go first. And I'm like,
Oh.
Right.
okay. And I'm like, okay, I will Art of War, banish, draw
Yeah.
2, go again, command and conquer for 6. He blocked with all of his hand because he had no cards. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a blue, take a 4 with a hammer. It was like, what happened? I thought you were like a blocking deck, and didn't make the same mistake again, but I was high roller.
Yeah.
I got to play first, so it didn't matter.
All right.
But nevertheless, he pretty much he wasn't prepared for the match, so the game we played on Swiss, he didn't perform as well as he did on the finals.
Okay.
So it was a much more clean game from my side.
Right. Okay.
But you
So-
knew you would face Briars. You knew you had to play Briars,
yeah.
even though I played against a few of them.
Okay.
Okay.
So you finished Swiss in 4th place overall.
On fourth place, yeah.
Is it what
And
was your one loss? I think I missed that. What was the one loss?
With Prism on the second round.
Oh yeah, because you missed that Genesis. And that's what cost you. That's what put you in 4th place, and then that got you into the top 8. And then,
Well,
yeah.
On the top 8, I faced during the first turn against Bunas Canaris with a chain player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Round 1 again.
Again, exactly. So during the second round, I played against Tavlareas Nikos. He was running Briar, the Earth Briar, which I told you we had the 2-hour-long game.
Right.
So just quickly tell us,
Yeah.
how does a game go for 2 hours in a semi-finals?
Well, it was exhausting. I block, yeah. I block, yeah. He attempted to leave his deck with an Electrify, 3 Bull Lightings, and 2 Stings of Sorcery.
Okay.
All right.
To deal. That was what he attempted to do, but at some point I figured, so I had the lake, and I froze him one of the latest rounds on their game, and at some point he was like, I had that.
So you basically just went, I see your plan, the lake. So it just collapsed there and then.
Yes,
and then
like that.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was ahead on life total as well. I mean, so I think it's the same thing. It's not. I don't think it's efficient to attempt to deck Oldhim with
No. And then the finals, which we can all go and see, which was you against the Lightning Briar, the same guy you fought off in round 6. And we know how that outcome was because we've got a national champion right here. But how did you feel about that game?
Well, he had a much cleaner approach.
Yeah.
I think experienced. I think I had much more info about what to do during this game, during this matchup against the first time we played, and during the second time he had much time to think what to do because he had 2 hours to look me playing. I mean, against the Briar, so he could think what to do. So, still, the aggressive game plan of Briar is still threatening, but it's still one of the matchups you want to face because of how well your deck can block these little pieces of damage. And I mean, even though my life total went down a lot during this game and pretty fast, it removed him of some of his Amplify cards with Thunderants and stuff. And I had time to, to rotate the sigils. And at some point, I think if you manage to do your first rotate of the deck, you're winning. If you manage to do that.
I must admit, and we'll try and put a link to the game in our description here for this deck set. But I must admit, watching the game and even rewatching the game, you never seemed like you weren't in control or comfortable blocking up. Like even though you had at one point a 20-point life deficit, but you still it looked like you felt in control of your deck.
Well, it's a big thing with Oldhim to keep in track of what's still in your deck, what's not. And the turns where he managed to get a lot of damage through, I knew I had this kind of hand when I couldn't block, but that's it. That's out. That's no longer. We're done with this one, with this hand. So
Awesome. I will ask, I think, probably one of the most important questions, and it's going to be the last question that I'll throw out to you before as we wrap this up, because we're just past the hour mark. The reason I feel that Oldhim was not as highly represented at the very start, he's starting to creep in there now, is because of the biggest enemy, which we all thought was the time. How did you manage to get through the Swiss rounds with your old buddy Time chasing you?
I think one of these reasons is because most of the Flesh and Blood community is quite new to the game. because I mean it's been on Europe and stuff a year and something, or the game is still new. Players are still new to the game. Everybody's new to this game, so that makes everything pretty much slower. Nevertheless, my gameplay that I was confident enough to play Oldhim because I think I can play fast enough to catch up to the clock, but it was still exhausting, and I was like, okay, Arsenal, pitch blue, attack, hammer, you go. Okay, go.
Right, so as
go,
long as you're going quick and you're blocking quick.
It's the thing where you can also the thing that LSS has done that a time loss is bad for both of us.
Yeah.
Makes it, well, I don't want a time loss, you don't want a time loss, so let's get moving, But the thing is also, if you play lighting fast, and at some points that means thinking during your opponent's turn, that you have your hand and you do know what to do, sometimes you will manage to finish the game. But also because of that, I was giving like all the takebacks to my opponents. I mean, he was like, if you want to put something else, it's fine. If you want to play another card, it's fine. Just play fast, please. Play fast.
I'll give you all the takebacks if you just hurry up.
Do whatever you want. I mean, I don't care.
I will block
play your cards. Yeah, okay. Play your cards.
Yeah. Fair enough. I love it, man. So, Yorgos, thank you so much for taking the time to just go through this amazing Oldhim deck and just to walk us through the experience you've been through. It sounds like you had a blast.
Well, it was an amazing experience. The Greek Flesh and Blood Nationals were amazing, and I'm really hoped in competing in much bigger events. And I hope to do so because the Flesh and Blood community is it's great, it's amazing, and it's evolving. And I hope to, and I love being a part of it.
Well, hopefully
you and us both, buddy.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see you in a European calling in the battlefield. And we can flesh it out then, and then afterwards grab a beer.
Absolutely.
That's a part of the game too.
Absolutely.
Yorgos, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks.
And we'll see you soon.